My last video of 2021 looked at my top 50 coasters. This is totally my opinion, 100% subjective. But what if we looked at that list and broke it down objectively? We can't do all 50, so I'm gonna narrow it down to 15. These are the top 3% of my credits, so these are the absolute best of the best. Let's break them down to see which one's the tallest, fastest, longest, best paced, and rank them based on prime ride time. These are my top 15 coasters, by the numbers. If you're new to this series, prime ride time starts when the train picks up speed off the lift hill and ends when it hits the final brakes. For launch coasters, the clock starts when the launch starts. Mid-course brakes are left in. Those will extend the ride time but hurt the pacing. With the help of Google Maps and the Pythagorean theorem, I'm able to take out the lift hill, brakes, and station. Because of this, the length on your screen will not match the length on RCDB. Before we get started, if you can drop this video a like, I'd appreciate it. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. In 15th place with 38 seconds is X2, an Aero 4th Dimension coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is the shortest by a long shot, and given how unique the ride is, it's not a big surprise. It's so crazy and intense, I'm perfectly fine with those 38 seconds. That 215-foot drop puts it 4th in the list in height, hitting 76 miles per hour, which is also 4th. It's got that double out and back layout with the least amount of track length, almost 200 feet behind the next shortest coaster on the list. I mentioned how intense X2 is, and the pacing backs that up. Covering 68.3 feet per second, it's up at 3rd on my list. In 14th place with 49 seconds is El Toro, an Intamin prefabricated wooden coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. This is a lot like X2, fast and furious. Let's go straight to pacing. Absolutely, this ride's strong point is it tries to rip your head off, and you can see it all the way up at number 2, less than 1 foot per second behind X2. Like X2, El Toro suffers in length. I know it's listed with 4,400 feet of track, but it only really uses about 3,400 feet of that, putting it in 12th place. Its 176-foot drop is near the middle in 9th place, and even though it tops out at 70 miles per hour, it's only 10th on my list. In 13th place with 52 seconds is Lightning Rod, an RMC hybrid at Dollywood. I always felt like Lightning Rod was a short ride, probably because it has that launch lift hill instead of a regular one, and compared to these others, it's kinda short. But for a coaster in general, 52 seconds isn't that bad. It is also 13th in length, just 46 feet behind El Toro, and it's 6th in pacing, that being helped out by the launch lift hill. That also drives its speed up to 73 miles per hour, tied for 6th, despite its 165-foot drop only being 10th. This coaster has a brilliant layout, and it's relentless, even if it's not the biggest or longest ride. In 12th place with 57 seconds is Wicked Cyclone, an RMC hybrid at Six Flags New England. If you just look at it, it's small. It doesn't look impressive. It's second to last with that 109-foot drop, just 1 foot away from the bottom. Nothing in my top 15 is slower, topping it at just 55 miles per hour. Despite all this, Wicked Cyclone is my number 4 coaster. Its length and pacing aren't all that great either, 14th in both categories. The fact that Alan Schulke made such an amazing coaster with these stats, hats off to you, sir, you are a genius. In 11th place with 59 seconds is Fury 325, a B&M Giga at Carowinds. I said in my Carowinds video, I was surprised this didn't even crack the 1 minute mark. Seeing as this is number 11, you can tell my favorite rides are pretty long. Fury has the biggest drop in my top 15, and it's not even close. It's 99 feet taller than the 2nd place coaster. It also clears the field by 15 miles per hour in speed, but it's not the longest, falling to 2nd, more than 200 feet behind number 1. But Fury is the king of pacing, number 1 by a lot, 22 feet per second better than number 2. Fury is awesome in every way, but it's just not the longest in ride time. All that being said, 59 seconds is nothing to complain about. This is an easy pick for my number 2 overall coaster. In 10th place with 60 seconds is Twisted Colossus, an RMC hybrid at Six Flags Magic Mountain. These 60 seconds are split evenly, 30 on the blue, 30 on the green. This has below average pacing, also ranking 10th, and that second lift hill really kills the pacing. It's 13th in height, 13th in speed, but what it does with those elements is what really makes it great. It does rank up at 9th in length, even taking out both of those lift hills, but all in all, this is not a big RMC, it's just a masterful layout. Airtime and hang time all over the place, some quick, some sustained, some ejector, some floater, and the way they design it to duel with the other track, that makes it even more impressive. In 9th place with 61 seconds is Magnum XL 200, an Aero Hyper at Cedar Point. The first ever hypercoaster doesn't really pop off the stat sheet. Maybe it did 30 years ago, but now it's kind of pedestrian. Its drop is just short of 195 feet, good for 8th. It tops out at 72 miles per hour, which is 9th. It's got about 12 feet less track than Twisted Colossus, so it's 10th. And its pacing isn't great, sliding in right behind Twisted Colossus once again for 11th. It's definitely been overshadowed over the last 3 decades, but the forces it pulls with that unrefined track is just insane. It makes this ride what it is, ultra elite. In 8th place with 64 seconds is Mako, a B&M Hyper at SeaWorld Orlando. This is kind of the opposite of Magnum. It's not weird or janky, it's smooth and graceful. and they're both great for their own reasons. This edges out Magnum in height at 200 feet, good for 6. Also picks up 1 extra miles per hour, also 6. It's 7th in length with over 4,100 feet of prime ride track, and it's right in the middle in pacing. It seems like this lands right in the middle of just about everything. In 7th place with 67 seconds is Velocicoaster, an intimate multi-launch at Universal's Islands of Adventure. The newest coaster on this list is the only traditional launch coaster. I don't really consider Lightning Ride traditional, and I'm really impressed that this has well over a minute of prime ride time. This is packed with so many legendary elements, but how does it stack up stat-wise? That top hat is the tallest point of the ride at 155 feet, good for 11th. You wouldn't expect a launch coaster to be that tall, unless you're talking about Dragster or something like that. It doesn't go crazy with speed either, topping out at 70 miles per hour, which is good for 10th, along with El Toro. This is not a one-dimensional coaster. It does so much over its 4,300 feet of prime ride track, good for 6. You'd think a ride like this would have awesome pacing, but it's right between Mako and Twisted Colossus, only ranking 9th. Solid stats, nothing spectacular, but the whole package. In 6th place with 69 seconds is Diamondback, a B&M Hyper at Kings Island. This is my top-ranked B&M Hyper, but not the last one on this list. That 215-foot drop is the 3rd tallest, and its 80-mile-per-hour top speed is 2nd highest, albeit 15 miles per hour behind Fury. In terms of length, it's 149 feet longer than Velocicoaster, ranking 5th. It's also 5th in pacing, nearly identical to Lightning Rod. It's weird to think about those two having the same pacing, but they just do it different. Lightning Rod has less speed, but it's more snappy. Diamondback has more speed, and makes up for those slow camelbacks with a lot of speed in the valleys. I love this for its epic airtime, and with 69 seconds of ride time, you're getting your money's worth. In 5th place with 70 seconds is Raging Bull, a B&M Hyper at Six Flags Great America. This is the final B&M Hyper on here, and it's different than the others. It focuses less on big camelbacks and more twister track, some up high and some down low. You'd think that would help the pacing a little bit over a ride like Diamondback, but it's actually much lower, trailing Diamondback by 6 feet per second, only ranking 12th. It is 13 feet shorter, good for 5th, and 7 miles per hour slower, tied for 6th. It's right in the middle in length, with just over 4,000 feet of prime ride track, finishing last among the 3 B&M Hypers in my top 15. Raging Bull is probably B&M's most unique Hyper, and I love it for its layout. It's not repetitive, and it has 5 or 6 great airtime moments. In 4th place with 71 seconds is Superman the Ride, an intimate Hyper at Six Flags New England. Superman is the coaster that barely made this list, ranking as my number 15, but that 221-foot drop is the 2nd biggest on the list. It hits 77 miles per hour at the bottom of that hill, good for 3rd. And with over 4,700 feet of prime ride track, it lands in 4th place. You also find it at 4th place in pacing, better than Diamondback, but a foot per second behind X2. Top 4 finishes in all categories. Superman the Ride is not only a stat monster, it also has one of the great layouts in the world. If it had better lap bars, it would be much higher than 15 on my list. It's hard to believe that Six Flags put a coaster like this in a park the size of New England. In 3rd place with 77 seconds is Steel Vengeance, an RMC hybrid at Cedar Point. My number 1 overall coaster is also the last RMC hybrid on this list. 77 seconds is just a stupid amount of ride time, and it's something that makes Steel Vengeance kind of untouchable. There may be other amazing RMCs around the world, or opening this year, but pairing that quantity with all that quality, and this is an easy number 1. It's tied with Mako for 6th place in height with that 200-foot drop. It hits 74 miles per hour, which is 5th. Falls just short of 5,000 feet of prime ride track, which is 3rd, but the pacing kinda suffers. It's only 7th, right between Lightning Rod and Mako. This surprised me, but when you consider it's only 200 feet tall and covers that much track, it's not going to be hauling through the whole course. RMC did a great job with the elements, keeping them proportional with the speed so the ride doesn't get sluggish. In 2nd place with 80 seconds is Ghost Rider, a CCI wooden coaster at Knott's Berry Farm. With all of these 200-foot monsters in my top 15, Ghost Rider is over here barely sporting a 100-foot drop, ranking dead last. It's 1 foot shorter than Wicked Cyclone, but it's listed with 1 extra mile per hour, good for 14th. It has more prime ride track than El Toro, but still only ranks 11th. It's also dead last in pacing at 45.8 feet per second, about 3 feet per second behind Wicked Cyclone. The second half of Ghost Rider is quick and rapid fire, but the first half has big drawn-out high elements, especially that scenic turnaround right before the mid-course. Ghost Rider is a masterpiece of a wooden coaster. It brings all kinds of forces. It's just not really a stat machine. 80 seconds of ride time is awesome, and it doesn't feel like a slow ride at all. In 1st place with 100 seconds is Voyage, a Gravity Group wooden coaster at Holiday World. This clears the entire field by 20 seconds, and if you want to look first to last, it's a full minute and 2 seconds longer than X2. With 100 seconds comes the longest track length, 5,596 feet of prime ride track, more than 200 feet better than Fury. But unlike Fury, Voyage isn't all that tall. In fact, it's about half the size of Fury, only 12th place with that 154-foot drop, 1 foot behind Velocicoaster. It's also 12th in speed, trailing Velocicoaster and El Toro by 3 miles per hour. This looks like an ugly recipe for pacing, and it's as bad as you would think. It's 13th, just under 56 feet per second, a couple feet per second behind Raging Bull. I don't think anyone riding the Voyage would think it slows down that much, with the one exception being that mid-course brake run. During Hollywood nights, it's probably a lot better. But with a 154-foot drop and almost 5,600 feet of prime ride track, not much you can do about that pacing stat. This might be the best layout of all time, climbing up and down a hill in the middle of the woods. Just a relentless, chaotic ride full of airtime and laterals. That's a wrap on my top 15 coasters, by the numbers. Let me know if anything here surprised you, or confirmed something you thought you already knew. I guess the one surprise for me was the pacing on Velocicoaster and Lightning Rod. I know the faster the ride, the better the pacing in general, but these both hit 70 miles per hour, and these only ranked 6th and 9th. At the same time, El Toro finished 2nd, despite also hitting 70 miles per hour. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, and give me a sub if you're new here, and check out my playlist for other videos I've done in this format. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-road footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to be a baseball fanatic like me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.